Yo, 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 welcome to Pitch Report. I'm Mario,
And Amilcar.
and we've officially begun our World Cup 2026 coverage. And with that, we like to start this coverage with a What is the World Cup? A World Cup 101 episode. This is basically to get you up to speed. If you don't know much about the World Cup, we'll give you all the basics, what the World Cup is, how it works, who the main players are, just so that you have enough information to be part of your work water cooler with your friends, family to talk about the World Cup. Please feel free to share this episode with anyone that you think might find it useful. And without further ado, let's jump into it, Amilcar.
Yeah, Mario. So let's start with the basics. Where's the World Cup being held this year?
So the World Cup is being held in North America is the short answer. Both the United States, Mexico, and Canada are co-hosting the World Cup together. It's the first time that three countries host the World Cup together. We've had two hosts before with Korea or South Korea and Japan in 2002. And the future World Cup in 2030 will also be hosted by three countries, Portugal, Spain, and Morocco.
Oh, it's exciting. Kind of hits close to home. So is it club teams or like countries that are playing?
That's a great question. So the World Cup is national teams, so it's countries. It's essentially the Olympics, but for soccer.
Awesome. And then what's the difference between club teams and countries?
That's a really good question. So within each country, like in Europe or in the US, there might be specific soccer leagues, and those soccer leagues have club teams. So for example, Messi plays for Inter Miami, which is a team in Major League Soccer, which is an American league. However, Messi is Argentinian, so when the World Cup comes around, Messi plays for the Argentinian national team. For example, if you're a Lakers fan, Luka Doncic plays for the Lakers, an American team in the NBA, but when he's playing in international competitions, he would play for the Slovenian national team.
Oh, awesome. Okay, sweet. And how often does the World Cup take place?
The World Cup happens every 4 years. It's on even years. It's with the next one happening in 2030.
Awesome.
So, Amilcar, how would you say, how big is the World Cup compared to other sports events?
The World Cup is pretty much the biggest sporting event on the planet. It's bigger globally than the Super Bowl, the finals, the World Series. I would venture to say all of them combined, probably. The final is one of the most watched sporting events in the world, or sorry, one of the most watched events, not even sporting events in the world. So it's got a crazy, crazy global reach.
How many people would you actually say watch it?
The numbers are honestly crazy. I think in FIFA, they estimate about 5 billion people are engaged with the World Cup, which lasts about a month. But the final in 2022 between Argentina and France alone drew about 1.5 billion viewers globally. And to kind of put that into perspective, in the US, we see the Super Bowl as the most watched event in the year, and that draws about 120 to 130 million viewers. So think about 10 times as many people watch the final of the World Cup last World Cup than the Super Bowl itself.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about the format, Mario. So, how does the tournament actually work?
So the tournament is starts with the group stage. In this case, there's going to be 12 different groups, and there's four teams in each group. You play each team once, and if you win, you get 3 points. If you tie, you get 1 point, and if you lose, you get 0 points. And at the end of this, or I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, and you're going to go right into what I was about to ask. So, like, what is the group stage that you're kind of referencing?
So basically, the group stage is how you determine who's going to move on to the knockout phase. So 32 teams out of the 48 teams participating are going to move on to the knockout phase. 12 group winners, so whoever gets the most points out of that group, and then 12 second place winners. And then you're going to get the eight third best teams to round out 32 teams total that would move on to the knockout round. And depending on if you win your group, you would be paired against other teams that did lower. So either like a second or third place team for the knockout phase, which essentially gives you a more favorable matchup in theory.
And when you say the eight best third place teams, is that just on how many points they got?
It will be on how many points you get. However, in the event of ties, there are a few in terms of like same amount of points. Let's say one multiple teams have 4 points, for example.
Mhm.
You do go to other tiebreakers, such as goals in favor. So, how many more goals did you score versus how many goals did you receive? And all the way down to how many yellow cards your team might have received throughout the group stage to in the favor of teams that have less yellow cards. So, basically, if you played a cleaner tournament, you'd be incentive or you'd be rewarded by getting to move on if in the event of a tiebreaker with another team that maybe received more yellow cards.
Okay, awesome. That makes complete sense. And now that we know kind of what the group stage is, you mentioned something about a knockout round. What does that mean once all these players move on to the next round?
Essentially, you play each team on a knockout round where it's winner take all. You'll have a regular 90-minute game. If there is a tie at the end of the game, you go to extra time. It's two 15-minute halves. And if at the end of that there's still not a winner, you go to a penalty shootout, which is a really painstaking, thrilling way to watch a World Cup, especially towards the end of the tournament where the stakes are extremely high.
So, what you're saying is that there can't be a tie. So, you can't have like 1 point for a tie once you're in the knockout round.
Exactly. Someone has to win, and eventually you need. If you go to extra time, and you're playing over 2 hours of soccer, so the penalty is basically a way to determine who actually moves on, which in many cases feels like a coin toss. But we do have to decide who a winner is to move on. So that's the best solution at the moment.
So, it seems like, from what I'm understanding, the knockout round is similar to kind of like March Madness.
Exactly like March Madness and just as exciting. When a team, especially when a team wins or they have a late like goal score like towards the end of the game, it's kind of like a buzzer beater. The players run on the field. It's crazy. It's really, really exciting thing to watch.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be.
And then just taking a step back on how you even get to the World Cup, how many teams qualify for the World Cup?
So this is the first time that a World Cup is going to be hosted. That there's going to be 48 teams. After 1998, they increased it to 32 teams, and it's been like that since then until this World Cup. Where it's going to be 48 teams, giving the opportunity for more teams and maybe some potentially smaller nations being able to be a part of it.
And how did these nations actually qualify to get into the tournament?
Yeah, so there's different conferences regionally, like the European Conference, CONCACAF, which is kind of the North America, and there's a lot of different ones around the world. And they play what we call like qualification matches, where they're able to essentially win games in almost tournament style in order to get a place in the World Cup. And then once they've solidified those places, there are still a couple of places where they call it kind of playoffs. And some of the teams that didn't quite make it in that initial, tournament or initial qualification round get to play against each other for like those final couple of spots in the World Cup.
Wow, so it's quite a journey just to get to the tournament then.
Yeah, you can imagine that it's about a year to 2 years of these matches that are played in between club football. So they're playing these throughout the year as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And and then going into the tournament, are there any favorites to win?
Oh yeah. There's always favorites to win. Not always are the favorites the ones that end up doing well, but kind of historically, they usually kind of the people that are playing really well in the last year or so. So right now, I would say the favorites to win are probably between Spain, France, and England are probably the top tier. That people would not be surprised if they won. Then we have the tier. I would say like 1A and B, which is like Argentina and Brazil. Really, really solid teams. Also, would no there would be no surprise if they win. And then we have a dark horse. Hate to call it a dark horse because some people might think that they're right in that 1A 1B tier, and that would be Portugal or maybe Germany.
And who are like the two very famous players that might be in these teams?
Yeah, and even if you don't know a lot about football, you might know these two names, which one being Cristiano Ronaldo and the other one being Lionel Messi. Something super important about this World Cup, it's most likely going to be the last time we're ever going to see them in a World Cup. And they've played, I think, about 4 World Cups already, if not 5. So it's a pretty monumental, occasion for arguably the two best players in the history of the sport.
And then what about the host nations, Mexico, Canada, and the US? Where would they kind of be in chances to win or expectations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the host nations generally get a little bit of a boost because they're playing at home, as you can imagine. But right now, Mexico is the highest ranked out of them, ranked at number 18 in the world. US is 23, and Canada is ranked 30th. So they're not projected to win the World Cup. However, a lot of the times they get, like I said, those little boosts. So you can probably expect them to go into the knockout rounds and maybe do some damage in maybe those first or second rounds of the knockouts.
Oh, wow. Hopefully, one of the hosts wins.
Yeah, that'd be super exciting. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what it means. So why do players and fans care so much about the World Cup?
The World Cup is basically the ultimate prize for the world's most popular sport, which is soccer. Only 7 countries have actually won the World Cup, so it's something that not everyone really gets to experience, but it's a cultural event that everyone is a part of. Even if your country might not be playing, you probably watch players in different leagues and you are rooting for these players even if they're not from your own specific country. Argentina has a lot of Messi fans, or sorry, there's a lot of Messi fans to Argentina. There's a lot of Portugal fans through Cristiano Ronaldo. So it's just really a global event that brings a lot of people and cultures together. And it's really cool getting to host them because a lot of these people tend to usually travel to the host nations and they're part of the tournament.
Can you clarify something for me, Mario? I've heard you mention it as soccer. I've heard you mention it as football. Can you kind of give me a little bit of an idea on why those two words are they the same thing? Kind of what does it mean?
They are the same thing. It's just depending on where you're standing. They might be called something different. In the US, we tend to call it soccer. Everywhere else, essentially, we call it football. So at the end of the day, it's soccer, football. It's part of like the mix of the cultures. Different countries play soccer a little bit differently. Italy's not playing in the World Cup this year, but they tend to be very defensive. France has really good attacking play. Spain is usually known for having a lot of control, a lot of like tiki taka they call it, where they dominate control of the ball. So it's all part of like it's the same thing, but the approach is different.
It's like kilometers and miles, it seems like.
Exactly.
Yeah, hopefully this episode has given you a little bit more of clarity, a little bit of things to talk about, a little bit of a background on what the World Cup is, kind of who takes part in it, and kind of some important thoughts on it. If you'd like to kind of continue on with analysis and talking about the games, the matches, who's going to be playing who we think's going to win, and kind of some more of our thoughts on the World Cup, keep following us for World Cup coverage. We are on Instagram and X at underscore pitch report and also on YouTube at pitch report pod. So thanks for joining us. I'm Amilcar.
I'm Mario.
Bye.
Bye.